Uh, Gee, I said, wouldn't it be fun to do this live? I said. Oh, hi there. uh, Welcome, everybody, to Saturday morning. That is the one anybody who thinks about actually getting up at this time on a Saturday morning. And if you are as crazy as I am, well, welcome again to YouTube Live, where we really don't have much else to do at this point because there is a snowstorm going on here in New England. As I'm sure most people have heard, pretty much the entire East Coast is falling into the ocean. Essentially, it's the one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse are running around. It's snowing in January, as if that's never happened before. Regardless, that's one reason why I felt it would be a decent idea to do a little bit of slow cooking this morning to help keep the place, to help keep the place warm, and also because there's really not many things better than Boston baked beans for dinner here in New England, and so I thought I'd get all this together. And I was expecting to be completely ready at this point. I haven't even mixed the bean sauce yet, unfortunately. But, well, all we can do is keep going. So this will not take too long, fortunately, because yeah, Boston baked beans are not especially difficult to prepare. Uh, at this point, unfortunately, as I said, I'm running a little bit behind. Got to quickly chop up an onion here. So rather than start talking, let's get going and do what needs to be done. Yes. Besides, I do enjoy, despite all this, I do enjoy my recipe for Boston baked beans. It's one that I'm quite proud of, and I'm pleased that a lot of people seem to like it as well on YouTube. So it's definitely a recipe I enjoy making most of the time. Whereas folks who've actually tried it say it's pretty darn good, and I appreciate the compliments. I also appreciate any criticisms that might occur as people make this. I mean, without criticism, I would not know what I'm doing wrong, and that's why there are one or two things. Oh, good grief! There are one or two things about this recipe that are a wee bit different from your typical Boston baked beans. Number one being that I soaked the beans overnight as you're supposed to do, but I soaked them in a saltwater brine rather than your typical fresh water. This is something I learned a few years ago. Why the hell isn't this stupid onion peeling right? Anyway, this is something I learned a few years ago that doing a saltwater brine actually does a better job softening the beans, and so they will have the right consistency when as they cook for several hours. It does not actually give the beans an overly salty taste, and as such, I indeed have made this pretty much my regular method for preparing beans. Let me just throw these things out as we get down to a little bit of chopping here. I am I'm definitely not one of those guys who can chop an onion like that, I'm afraid. I did not have the opportunity to learn that little skill, and I'm a wee bit insecure with my own abilities to try doing it that way. So I'm afraid my onion um, chopping does have a little bit to be desired, I'm afraid. All I can say is I do my best, and so far I haven't yet cut my finger off. Of course, I better not jinx myself by saying things like that. And besides, these things only need to be rough chopped anyway. I don't need to have a fine dice. They will be just fine the way they are. And once these onions are chopped, there's only one other major part two major parts of this recipe before these beans go into the oven. One, of course, is to prepare the bean sauce, and the other is to prepare a big pork shoulder, which is actually also not traditional for Boston baked beans, but I really enjoy doing this. I'm sure, or at least I hope you've seen my recipe for Boston baked beans, Boston baked pork and beans, rather. That's where I take a whole pork shoulder and cook this with the beans, and that's one reason why I've broken out the one of my bigger pots, the BSNR Birmingham Stove and Range number 12. And let me see, on top of other things, okay. Normally I'd use a bench scraper for this. Let's do this as best as we can, even though I know I'm going to spill them all over the place. And once we do this, we will get down to preparing ourselves some bean sauce here. Told you I'd spill them all over the place. Fortunately, it's a Saturday morning, and I'm really not in that much of a rush. My work pager starts at 8:30 this morning, but there's plenty of time yet for that, because this is not going to take the full hour to prepare. There we go. We've got ourselves some onions all chopped up. And having done that, I should probably next start preparing the bean sauce, which is a good excuse to, probably about this size, break out one of my vintage bowls, because why not? And while we're doing that, good morning, Turner Fowler. Nice to see somebody else is up here this morning. And likewise, Celtic, I think Celtic cast iron. Yeah, great start to the day. Well, I certainly hope so. As I mentioned, here in New England, we are indeed experiencing another one of those winter blizzards. You know, the one that's where people post their memes saying, "Why do I live where the air hurts my face?" That type of thing. So let me make sure here. Even though it's my recipe, I don't have it memorized. Beans have been soaking. Bacon. Oh, well, yeah, give me one quick second about the bacon. We have bacon, as I certainly hope we do. Shoot. Low on bacon. Crap. Well, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's the fun thing about this channel. It's like I never know what's going to happen next. This is definitely not a professional channel. I forgot to thaw out the bacon. So give me a second, and I can start preparing the rest of the sauce while we do that. This is my defrost one. There we go. One of the few things I do use my microwave for is, in fact, for defrosting. All right, let's see. Bacon, onion chop, check. Okay. Now, rushing around all morning, I'm mad at myself for not having some very obvious things ready. All right, at last. How did my measuring spoons go? Good grief. Again, I apologize, everybody. There we go. Finally. Can you see I'm all prepared in advance here? They call this mise en place in France. Of course, in France, I can only imagine the words they'd have for me right now. It's definitely not mise en place. Okay, other than that, you see, especially because I'm preparing like 2 pounds of beans, I've got to at least double or maybe even triple this, because I've got a huge pork shoulder here. So that means we're going to go all the way, get ourselves cup of brown sugar. Plop. Let me see, 1/3 cup of brown sugar, 1/3 cup of molasses, meaning that we're going to do a whole cup of molasses. And in fact, one other thing I need to do before I do molasses is a trick my mom taught me, and I'm sure a lot of folks know as well. Before you pour molasses into any container, you should grease the container with a little bit of olive oil or your favorite cooking oil, but I like olive oil because doing that will help the molasses come out of the cup without your having to scrape it out. Yeah, because you know how much fun pouring molasses is. All right, let's get this out of the way. At least once this is all done, I'll be able to relax and take pages from work as all of this slow cooks. And not only do I like Grandma's molasses for their consistency and their flavor, they're also one of the few molasses brands that has a nice wide top. Makes it much easier to pour this stuff. In fact, let's not waste any time, shall we? Let's get this out and pour it in. Just a wee bit more of this. There we go. Boy, this is going to pour like molasses in January, isn't it? Oh, I'm so funny. But there we go. All right, molasses. And then will come the, these are the two big ingredients. Now, let's see if my little trick works. Give it a moment or so. And most of it seems to be coming out, still slowly. However, little by little, yeah, I promise this next hour is not going to consist of pouring molasses. All right. Well, most of it came out, that much I could say. So that means better dig out the spatula, which I'm gonna need anyway to stir this, because I don't want to waste time here. There we go. That didn't take very long. No reason why I can't just leave this in here. Still, we're not doing too badly. All right, having done that, let me see. Kosher salt, 1.5 teaspoons, since I am tripling the amount here. And here it is. And you know what? At least I got most of my ingredients out. And as I'd mentioned in the opening, in the description of this video, I was also hoping to take a few minutes to wax nostalgic because, like it or not, I'm old enough to remember some other New England winter events going back from the silly winter of 2003. That was when we've so far made our all-time snowfall record. That was the year we got something like, something like 150 million inches of snow or so. That's 1, 2, 3, where it seemed like every Monday morning, pretty much throughout January and February, there was another snowstorm dumping several more inches again and again and again. And the weathermen, of course, got all excited and had their wonderful little, "Oh boy, we're gonna break the snowfall record this winter." Yay, gee, I'm just so excited about that. Here's a little graphic of one of the tall players on the Boston Celtics. And we're going to show how much the snow compares to him. And he's here, and the snow comes up to and he's here, and the snow comes up to like here or so. So he's essentially buried alive. Yeah, we were all just so thrilled that we had so much snow that year. Okay, collect some. Now we get to our ground pepper. And normally it says teaspoon of ground pepper, which means I get to increase the amount. Because some people don't like pepper as much as I do, I will only do 2 teaspoons of pepper rather than a full tablespoon. There we go. And this is plenty of heat. As much as some people like to have their cayenne powder in their barbecue sauce and everything, I've never been really a fan of too much heat. I prefer the sweet taste of Boston baked beans. And 1.5 teaspoons of dry mustard, and I got that out. Where the heck did I put it? Why is it not here? Cloves. Crap. Excuse me, please. Oh, I took out the dry mustard. I had it in my hand. I'm betting I was stupid enough to put it back. Guess what? I was stupid enough to put it back. It's like I took out the dry mustard and then I put it right back. Anyway. Yeah, these are the type of things you never see on those professional cooking channels, although I like to think I'm not the only one this happens to. So 1, 2, and 3 dry mustard. 1.5 teaspoons of dry mustard. Then, having done that, come on, you mother. Okay, next up, dry mustard. Okay, tomato paste. Here's the part where I do 1.5 cups of tomato paste, or in other words, 2 of these silly little cans. So yet another thing I forgot to do. Oh, come on, now what? Oh, it's in here somewhere, damn it. Excuse me again. I washed the can opener, and I know it's here somewhere. F you. Okay, no, that's good. And I know the plastic thing is, I know the plastic thing is here. In here, I washed it. Son of a... Okay. You'd think I would know where I put the can opener. Alright, while I'm waiting and struggling and trying to keep up on this, as I mentioned already, yeah, New England snowstorms. I know the can opener is in here somewhere.
Just do the live.
Okay.
I got you.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Anyway, okay. While we're doing that, hello, Rex Housley, and
Right there.
Oh, there it is. Of course. Thank you so much. Yeah, Matt, it's -20. It's -25 degrees Celsius in Ontario. Oh, good grief, that is cold. Is that? I make a lot of pinto beans. I've never made baked beans. Oh yeah, it would certainly be worth it. But -25 Celsius. I mean, really. I mean, is that cold enough where if you actually spit, does it freeze and crackle right in the air before it hits the ground? I'm not being sarcastic. I'm honestly asking that. I remember this famous story. I'm not betting a lot of people remember it. You know, the one "To Build a Fire" by Jack London. That's the famous one about the guy freezing to death in the Alaskan wilderness. And there was that one moment where, again, he actually did just that. He spat, and his spittle froze before it even hit the ground, so that he spat and he actually heard this crackle as it was freezing right in the middle of the air. And I have to wonder, is it that cold there in Ontario? There we go. Boy, I have to say, I have seen better tomato paste. Well, it's good enough because on the whole, this is all going to be slow cooking for several hours. So, besides, couldn't help it. After all, I did some last minute shopping last night because again I had the idea of making Boston baked beans today, and that means I had to stock up on tomato paste. So when everybody, good grief, this may be the worst tomato paste I think I've ever seen. When everybody is panicking in the store, because after all, it's never snowed in New England before. Pretty much you have to take what you can get. In that, I was at I looked at our favorite Wally World last night, and the bread aisle was completely empty. So was the milk, the eggs, the meat. And it's good that people were stocking up on essentials. There's no denying that, even though it's kind of silly. We live in a major city here, one of Massachusetts' major cities anyway, and the odds of us actually losing power for a long period of time are not impossible, but really not that great. So, of course, a lot of it is hype. Okay, there we go. So far, so good. I think I'll just mix what we have here, and then we'll add the rest of the ingredients. We're almost done already. I've seen Boston baked beans recipe where this is about all you need, in fact. Some ground pepper, tomato paste, dry mustard, and not much else. And of course, there are some recipes that actually use just simply ketchup and mustard. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. Although, as I mentioned before, I'm proud of this recipe. I really like how it tastes. From here, actually, now I put in a little bit of sweetness, which is equal amounts of sugar and vinegar. White sugar, that is. So, because I tripled the recipe, that means I gotta do 3 tablespoons of sugar. And it's like, why are you doing this when you already added brown sugar? Well, the main reason, again, is because I'm going to be adding an equal amount of vinegar so that the two can mix together. And here's the vinegar. I always use apple cider vinegar, but there's no reason why you couldn't just use white vinegar. 1, 2, 3. This would also make a pretty good barbecue sauce, too. I actually have used it as a barbecue sauce on a few occasions. I've even made oven barbecue chicken with this sauce. And yet again, if you wanted to look that up, please do so. And finally, the last ingredient, and that would be ground cloves, which is kind of like not exactly a secret ingredient, but it's one that I don't see in many of these recipes. 1/4 teaspoon, so that means we do 3/4 of a teaspoon of ground cloves. And then at this point, there's only one last thing to do, and that's prepare the pork shoulder. 1, 2, 3. But yes, I am old enough, like it or not, to remember the legendary blizzard of '78 that everybody still refers to even today. Of course, as I was growing up, even in the time after the blizzard of '78, everybody would remember a previous winter blizzard in Boston, sometime in the '50s. Which no, I was not around when that happened, but apparently a full-blown hurricane struck Boston during winter in the 1950s or something like that. And until the blizzard of '78 came around, that was the storm to which pretty much everything else was measured. And then the blizzard of 78 came along. But that was an interesting time. I mean, we did not have it as bad as some people did. I mean, my my roommate Jamie, she mentions how her dad was actually outside during the blizzard of 78, and it seems that he was hit by a snowplow and actually broke his femur. So, so her memories of the blizzard of 78 are not quite as fun as mine. Mine include my dad going outside and bringing all of us outside because he always did to shovel out. Yeah, in the middle of a snowstorm when we were getting like maybe, oh, I don't know, 6 inches of snow an hour, he was actually trying to shovel out the car. Didn't work. And my mom, of course, needed cigarettes because, as you know, when you need cigarettes, you need cigarettes. And I actually remember going with mom, trying to make it to the drugstore at the top of the street so that she could get her cigarettes. Didn't work. Both of us just gave up and turned around before, oh, yeah, 8 o'clock. Okay. There we go. Sorry about that. Both of us just turned around, could not even make it to the top of the street. The wind was blowing and the snow was drifting, so it was pretty intense. Nothing really bad happened to my family personally. We just remember things like that, like how after the blizzard of 78, there was, the backyard was completely buried in snow. I mean, we're talking like at least 3 or 4 feet of snow to the point where after the storm had finally passed, we could actually, dig tunnels in the snow. And for us, that was unusual. Okay, but still, here is our Boston baked bean sauce, and there's certainly going to be plenty of it, which means now we are finally almost ready. This really is not taking too long to prepare. It's taking longer than normal, largely because, well, we're live and I'm talking my way through it. If I wasn't doing that, it would take a lot less time to prepare. However, now we've got the last part. Probably the most fun part. And where did my paper towels go? It's always something, isn't it? All right, here we go. Because I need a couple more. There we are. Now that this is done, we bring out not exactly the star of the show. The star of the show, I suppose, would be the beans. But this is the other star of the show. Yeah. And that would be a big pork shoulder. This is, according to the label here, this is like an 8.5 pound pork shoulder. So I've actually made bigger ones. I've made like 11 or 12 pound pork shoulders with this recipe. But I mean, especially since there are only a couple of us here, this is going to be more than enough to make a whole bunch of pulled pork. And I'm certainly looking forward to it. As we have Boston baked bean flavored pulled pork, which again, as I mentioned already, this is a recipe I'm quite proud of. And I probably should have marinated it overnight, in fact. Did not have time to prepare in that manner, unfortunately, but that's really not a big deal. This will still slow cook just fine over the course of the next 9 or 10 hours. Throw this in the sink now. And let's score this. There we go. Since it's all going to come apart, this is not going to be very difficult. Now, this will only help the mixture soak right into the meat. There we go. And with that, Now we finally get to play with some cast iron here. Throw a little bit on here on both sides. Not a lot, but just enough to make it interesting when we cook this. Because, as I mentioned already, this is a barbecue sauce, or can be used as a barbecue sauce. And I'm, again, pleased to say that I don't think I've seen other Boston baked bean recipes that do this. Technically, the style that we're doing here is another French word, and that would be cassoulet. Ugh, there we go. Because that's where you take a big pork picnic, stick it into the pot, and slow cook it in that manner. Still, there we go. Because, of course, you know, we have to sear this before it goes into the oven. All right, yeah. Throw this all out. And I haven't even been keeping up with the comments, and I apologize there. Hello, Kelly Copley. I wasn't born till 1980, but I did drive home from Columbus, Ohio to London, Ohio in March of 2008. Oh, that was fun. I'm going to cook while chicken costs whole chicken costs $8, but on sale rang up $5. Hey, that's a good deal. Yeah. Is it really so tough to make? No, it's really not. As I said, I am making this seem tougher than it is, largely because I'm trying to do this live. So, this really is not hard to do at all. And I probably some of these steps you probably don't even have to do. You could just literally take this pork shoulder out of the bag, plop it in the pot, cover it with beans, and cook it, and it'll work just fine. Me, excuse me, I'm sorry about that. Me, of course, I've got to do it the hard way. Where is Trouble? Right now, Trouble is keeping Jamie company. And let's see. What else we need is this and this. So that it's time now. And away we go. Here comes the science. Maillard effect, as they call it. Now, again, an additional layer of flavor, as they also say. Yeah. Of course, that also means I've got to carefully turn over a big, heavy pork shoulder, which is always fun. Also, because I just gave it a coating of liquid, including brown sugar in it. That's why it looks like it's got a blackened cover to it. But that is not going to spoil the end result. I can guarantee that. I've made this dish quite enough times by now. Here's the fun part. There we go. Trying to make sure every part of this is seared. Butter Pat's price increase effective Monday. Well, again, my condolences to hearing that. So, I have always problems with some of the beans being hard. That's especially why I made sure to do this in a saltwater brine. I mentioned at the beginning of this, the beans themselves. I used a saltwater brine. Essentially, my ratio, but you could always experiment with your own, is for every quart of water I use to soak the beans, I put in 2 teaspoons of salt. That's really not that much, but it's enough to give it a more of a salt water consistency, and especially to soften the beans as they cook. Because again, more science. It means that it breaks down the hard outer shell of the beans, and the salt really does not penetrate the insides much. You will not, as I said, the beans will not be overly salty. I can turn this off now, in fact. Okay, let's see if we can get this out of here without doing something stupid. Yeah, did it. Haha, how about that? I did it. All right. Now, here comes the last part, the part that I should have done before. But because I was rushing around, I kind of overlooked this part. Oh well. There we go. Nice, easy way. Slice up half a pound of bacon here. And of course, you never want to use a knife or cut or do slicing or the like on a metal surface any more than a glass surface. Brought out the old cutting board for that. There we go. And that's the nice thing about having still chilled bacon. It's much easier to slice. Appreciate everybody's patience as I do steps here that I should have done before starting the live. But there we are. Now, with the worst of it over, time now to have some fun and just render up some bacon. I do not have to thoroughly cook the bacon because it is going to slow cook for several hours. But just enough, I guess, to start rendering out some of that wonderful bacon grease, which will help mix in with the bean sauce and the pork shoulder. So this is going to be some nice tasting Boston baked beans. There we go. Yeah, as I mentioned, this is, unfortunately, I actually could have used, well, even though the bacon is not completely thawed out, it's enough. As I said, the important thing is it's going to slow cook, and that really will cover up my mistakes here. And Volkswagen's Garage, prices going up again. Shelves bare. Yes, I know. Part of it has to do with people panicking. Part of it has to do with, well, what they call the worldwide retail shortage or inventory shortage or supply shortage, which of course gets into subjects that really should have been covered probably decades ago. Then we get into like worker conditions and other fun stuff like that.
The funny thing about all these shipments that are stuck in the shipyard,
Yes.
like, you know what doesn't get stuck in shipyards?
What?
Stuff made in America.
Oh yeah. There is that. Even so, there's still difficulty getting even that stuff out to consumers because the suppliers are having trouble keeping up with their staffing. And I am not here to criticize any of that because, the workers, of course, have some very legitimate reasons. After all, considering that just simply going out can be a potentially life-threatening situation, especially these days, I would say certainly that the workers have some legitimate concerns. But as I said, that's about as political as I'm going to get. Right now, I think I'm more interested in just getting this bacon ready. Yes, indeed.
Bacon. Bacon.
Bacon, and then onions. Yeah, so
I don't know where my truck was on you, sorry.
as I mentioned, the prep work is pretty much over at this point. As you can see now, it's really just a matter of mixing everything in. There we go. And again, I do not even have to thoroughly cook all these things because, as I've said already, it's going to be slow cooking for several hours. So it's all going to turn out just fine. Which means now we can get down to the most fun part. This is not even. We can get down to the part that we're here for. That would be the beans. Now, the thing is, the disadvantage, as I mentioned, I used a saltwater brine. I soaked these beans, and it's definitely softened because of that. However, because I used a saltwater brine, I cannot use the same bean water, unfortunately. I am going to have to fill this up with fresh water. So, that's the disadvantage of using salt brine, unfortunately. Let me just drain these beans here. Here we are. Now I better turn this off. But we are getting down to it. I will say that much. Beans, bacon, onions, and of course, our lovely Boston baked bean sauce. I could put just about all of it in. The little bit that's left, I will slather over the top of the pork when it goes into the pot. And we're already just about ready to put this into the oven. Because once we do this and add the water, we'll be ready. So know that as you asked before, Andrew, no, this is really not that hard to make. I'm just making it look harder than it is, in fact, because, as I said already, I'm doing this live. Also, I've put in a couple of extra steps in the hope that it will make this give it more flavor. There we are. And now at last, we put this on with the fat cap up so that it'll melt. And finally, oops, sorry, Mowgli. Let's not waste the rest of our bean sauce, shall we? There we go, more or less. And interestingly enough, it's Miss Mobley who's trying to crawl up my leg right now, not Trouble, which is quite surprising, I find. Still, I suppose it's time enough for her second breakfast. Still, there we go. Now from here, let us fill this up with some water. Yes, you can use chicken broth. Water will work just fine. But nonetheless, there we are. We've got our pork shoulder in. We've got our bean sauce prepared, along with onions and bacon, and the beans have been soaking overnight, which means For the record as well, the oven has been heating up at about 260 degrees Fahrenheit. There we go. That should be more than enough. Especially because you're covering this with a heavy cast iron lid. There we go. Man, I love this pot. This is a BSNR number 12. About the only way I would get rid of this pot is if I find a genuine red mountain pot. Hello, David Craig. I'm in Jacksonville, Florida, and we had a day below freezing yet this winter. Lucky you. Ha ha ha. What kind of beans are you using? I'm using navy beans. Let me get this into the oven right now. Now, finally be able to take a few minutes discussing this, which is what I had hoped to do, but unfortunately I was kind of, as I said, I kind of ran behind schedule here, but there we go. Actually, there's one more thing I should do. And that is put the tray underneath, because if the pot overflows, although I doubt it will, that will catch the extra liquid. And having done that, into the oven we go. Holy crap. Oh boy. Crap. There we go. And in it goes. There we go. That's always fun. And the worst of it is done. Now we get to sit and relax for about 9 hours. Which means it'll be time to eat maybe by about 6 p.m. tonight. Hello, Neotes. It did not look like a lot. Under a cup, I would think. Pyrex bowl, yes, indeed. What kind of beans are you using? These are navy beans. Nice and simple navy beans. I use 2 pounds of navy beans, in fact, and soak them in a saltwater brine for 12 hours. I find a 12-hour soak works pretty darn good. Much longer than that, and they start to spoil, so that's why I aim for a 12-hour soak. Did you put beer in it? I could have put beer in it, but I did not actually in this case, although that wouldn't be a bad idea. Yeah, I can, yeah, by the time, yeah, Volkswagen Garage, by the time this is done, yeah, the whole place will indeed be smelling like Boston baked beans, and that's not a bad scent to have. How much bacon out there? How much is bacon out there? It was $8 a package. Yeah, you're about right. Yes, I probably used $4 worth of bacon, i.e., half a pound in this thing. So, craft for others. I've been making a lot of homemade soup lately because it's being bitterly cold this month. I don't mind bad weather or the cold as long as you don't have to drive anywhere. Well, yes, indeed. Yay for the 21st century where some of us at least can work from home. Prices of meat have inflated. No, definitely. What type of beans? Again, these are Kelly Copley. Again, these were navy beans. Smart cat to leave the coffee. My cat Lucas just ran across my desk and cleared everything but my coffee. Congratulations. Butter pet price increases effective Monday. Ugh. And yes, again, Tim Gallagher always had problems with some of the beans being hard. As I mentioned already, that's the main reason why I do this in a saltwater brine, so that when they come out of the pot tonight, they should be good and soft. And with that, we are about ready, I guess. Oh yeah, bacon costs $7.98. Yeah, better ration that bacon. Didn't they? Oh, yeah, that's right. Maybe that's why they call them rashers of bacon. So, but I do believe we are about ready at this point to just sit and relax now for the rest of the day. Oh, yeah. if you can find them, smoked ham hock works well too. Definitely, yes. I did not have to put bacon in. Um, it does. I mean, while bacon, of course, adds some wonderful flavor to it, it is not absolutely essential. As somebody mentioned, you could use salt pork, which is more traditional here in Boston, in fact, or ham hock, or anything like that. I mean, after all, it's also get a huge pork shoulder is in there as well. I probably did not mean to add any bacon at all, in fact, for that reason. Of course, everything always goes better with bacon. I thought salt in the bean water would prevent them from softening, but as a matter of fact, it's the exact opposite. I tried that out myself after doing some research, as they say. Basically, I looked online for several examples here of people who really did compare a salt brine to a regular water brine, and they find no, the salt, and I will state this, the salt does not harden the shell of the outside of the beans and prevent them from softening. In fact, exactly the opposite. It actually does help to break down the hard outer shell and really gives it a much better consistency for that reason. So, if you don't believe me, the best I can say is try it yourself. You don't have to use a big pot like I do, but I mean, how much are dried? How much?
Lily's pouring it on so thick right now. She's loving wanting to be pet. She's like Jen Petter, and I just realized, you know what it is? She smells
Bacon.
bacon.
Yeah, of course. She smells
smell
bacon. Yeah.
I smell bacon.
Did you say burpees? Papa.
Well, we have uncooked bacon for whatever that's
Papa
worth.
didn't save you a piece of bacon.
This has to go in the
Oh my
fridge
goodness,
anyway.
see, look how thick she's pouring it on. Look at it.
Oh
look at
yeah,
it.
oh yeah, she definitely is.
She's
Yes,
pouring it on thick.
isn't she though?
Look at- What?
Bacon is very easy to make with a wet brine. I've made my own pea meal bacon for years. Yeah, I've made homemade bacon a couple of times as well. Did not even use any nitrates for that. Did you see my comment on your last video about subscribing only and subscribing and hitting the bell, or so when you're notified when doing a video? Yes, I did see that comment. I can only hope that well, pretty much the person who initially, never replied to my response, regrettably, and I waited several days, and I did make repeated notes or statements that they've not replied. I've not seen that person show up, unfortunately. So essentially, regrettably, that giveaway contest last week had some difficulty in the first place because the way they were all overlooked. Okay, treats coming up.
She's giving high fives and
Here we are.
she's giving pets and
Okay,
she's pouring on
yeah,
super
fair enough. So I will have to do my best and work it out with both of them, I think. But nonetheless, here we are now, just getting ready to just relax now, because it's still coming down quite heavy here in New England. Supposedly, the height of the storm is about to hit us right about now, in fact, in that it's going to reduce conditions where even the plows may have to pull over for a little while and let some of this blow over before they can finish plowing. So all I can say at this point is everybody just sit back and relax. This oven is going to help keep the place warm, and I like that too, not to mention the scent. But you too, everybody else, please keep safe, because this is these winter storms. Even though there's a lot of hype to them, they are not safe. They are pretty dangerous, and because of this, everybody really keep safe, keep warm, and of course keep on cooking. And that, I think, is really the best I could say here. Volkswagen's Garage, my favorite breakfast restaurant, has stopped offering all-you-can-eat bacon. I don't blame them, quite frankly. They, unfortunately, are doing what they can to survive. All right. How about Great Northern beans? Oh, definitely. I have made Great Northern beans, and they work wonderful as well. I could easily substitute Great Northern beans for Navy beans, or vice versa. So I'd say go ahead and use them. So if you want to soak yourself up a pound of Great Northern beans and try the saltwater brine, see how it works for you. That's the best I could say. I mean, after all, Great Northern beans, you can get them for like 99 cents a bag in some places. But it's about time for me to get on the work pager now. So, and we have accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. I can only thank everybody really so much for showing up here. I mean, I wasn't even expecting this many people on a Saturday morning on short notice. So, especially, I can only thank everybody. And of course, I'll have to have a reveal in about 9 to 10 hours when the beans are done. Because yeah, that's the second best part about this whole thing. The best part is eating them. And having said that, thank you once again, everybody. Keep safe and enjoy your Saturday. I mean, after all, it is Saturday, so whether you go out and play with the kids or the like, just have yourself a good day, okay? I'll see you all later, and thank you once again. Have a good day. Here we go. Houston.